watching sitcoms as a kid. That's all I did. I Love Lucy and all that stuff, I remember. And then I would write down the best lines. And so there's a lady named Madeline Pugh who wrote for I Love Lucy, Lucille Ball. I remember one scene, they're in the Brown Derby, a very famous restaurant. There's Fred and Ethel and Ricky and Lucy. And always at the Brown Derby, the best comedy comes out of reality. At the Brown Derby, they would go around years ago and have a big phone, a big red phone. And the captain waiter would say, telephone call for Rock Hudson, and then everybody looking, they'd take the phone over to Rock Hudson. So anyway, the guy comes in, there's Lucy and Ethel and Fred and Ricky, and he says, telephone call for Cary Grant, and Lucy and Ethel go, Cary Grant, oh my gosh, where's Cary Grant? And then Fred says, sit down, stop it, he's people just like you and me, and they cower down in the booth, and then about half a minute later, telephone call for Ava Gardner, telephone call. And Fred goes, Ava Gardner, oh my gosh, Ava Gardner. And then Lucy says, hey, sit down, Fred. She's people just like you and me. And there's a quick pause, perfect timing, and Fred says, she may be people, but she's not like you and me.
Benztown president Dave Chachi Dennis loves radio and all of his radio friends.
Hey, Chachi.
Hey, everybody.
Because Chachi loves everybody.
He's a radio legend, a comedic genius, a true entertainer whose voice has reached every corner of the world. For decades, he's made us laugh, sing, and tune in.
But enough about Robin Williams. Get to me.
Turning a morning show into a cultural phenomenon, creating one of the most iconic...
Excuse me. Coming up next, Taylor Swift. 2 things she said to Travis Kelce in the bedroom that you won't believe on Dees Sleaze. Oh, I'm back to you. I'm sorry.
Creating one of the most iconic countdowns in history and redefining what it means to connect with an audience.
Coming up next, number 1. Brought to you by Anusol. A-N-U-S-O-L. The first 4 letters of our name say it all in Anusol. Back to you.
Topped the charts, hosted hit TV shows.
Number 1, coming up next, Disco Duck. He made 1 penny a single, one of the worst deals ever cut with RSO Records. That's right, do the math. 6 million copies sold at 1 penny. Rick Dees. Oh, I'm sorry, you're not supposed to say the name. This person made $60,000 and then was fired. Now back to you, Chachi.
He's launched new media ventures and even helped bring the cooking channel to life.
Thank you. Coming up next, fried bacon and sausage. Get yours today.
Along the way, he's picked up just about every honor you can in broadcasting, from Billboard's Radio Personality of the Year to the Marconi Award, and somehow still finds time to bake, farm, and play a really incredible round of golf. Today, I get to sit down with the most influential voice, in my opinion, and actually a lot in radio history. He's had a tremendous impact on my career, and we'll get into that in a moment. And I'm sure this is no one is guessing who I am here with, but it is the legendary Rick Dees. Man, Rick, thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, what you don't know about Chachi, he's a great golfer. I've told him last week, I said, Chachi, he said, what should I do about this round we just played in golf? I said, Chachi, what I would recommend is have your clubs cleaned and burned.
Rick, tell me a little bit about growing up.
Well, first, thank you. Chachi, you're just such a joy, and not only a friend, but it's just awesome to be here with you. And Chachi does love everybody, but everybody loves Chachi. He's saved more careers. He's given more advice that is good. In my particular case, I was born in Jacksonville, Florida, in Duval County in 1847. so in 1847, there I was. And in Jacksonville, I lived there until I was 8 years old, but not before almost being bitten by 2 rattlesnakes. And I remember going out in the garage when I was 6 years old to get on my bike. This is right there on Trieste Boulevard in Venetia in Jacksonville. I heard... I said, whoa. and it was dark in the garage. I went into my dad and I said, Dad, I think I'm losing air in my tire. He goes out, turns on the light in the garage, and there's a 4-foot-long diamondback rattlesnake ready to strike my little leg at age 6.
Wow.
It missed, so that's why I'm here today.
That's unbelievable.
Then at age 8, we moved back to my parents' home in North Carolina, and believe it or not, it took all those years to get rid of the accent.
Did it really?
Yeah, because when you're around your parents and you're around people, let me give you a tiny example. In North Carolina, it's a very tight O. You don't say, so what? In North Carolina, they say, so what? They're very tight O. And they don't say lemon. This is very subtle. They say lemon, Limon instead of Le. So those tiny little things you have to get out. And then next thing you know, you're saying, Sunday, it's 60 minutes. Then on Alice, there's a problem with Schneider's ball peen hammer. Sunday at 8, 7 Central on CBS. Isn't that great? Anyway, so North Carolina, went there. Jake, our wonderful engineer, who's the greatest of all time, knows that I got in Boy Scouts and became an Eagle Scout. And that was one of the greatest things ever, the camping and all that goes on. So my parents divorced when I was about 13. They always argued. So instead of learning to play cards and Parcheesi and Monopoly, I went outdoors. I can tell you anything about plants, about animals, just amazing. So I was a Boy Scout until I was 12. And then Chachi, at that age, I became a Girl Scout. And they were wonderful. Then the cheerleaders, starring Essie Pearson as the head cheerleader.
When did you get interested in broadcasting?
That was incredible. I remember being at Grimsley High School in Greensboro, and there was a little wooden box up on the wall with a speaker. And then you hear, doo, doo, doo. The junior class of Grimsley presents The Whole Truth of Play It 2X. Grimsley. There's another person trying to cover up his southern accent. And so then the door opens and this guy came in and I said, oh, wait a minute. He had this giant Adam's apple. His name was Paul Allen. I said, wait a minute, Paul, are you the guy who just did that? And he said, yes, I am, Rick. And also I work at WGBG. I said, what do you mean? He said, I'm a DJ. I said, what did you say? I'm a DJ. Oh, a DJ. Good. He said, why don't you come by and watch me? I have a little studio in my house. My brother Larry is the engineer of the radio station. So he was on Kirby Drive. I was on Dogwood Drive. Went over there and went into his bedroom, and there's a console set up. He said, get on this microphone. I said, okay. And he recorded me and then he played it back. And I said, this is what everybody says when they hear their voice for the first time. Is that me? And I went, is that me? He said, yeah, but you know what? Come over and audition if you want. But first you have to get your FCC, Federal Communications Commission, broadcast license. I said, what do you do? How do you do that? And he said, well, you send off to Washington. They send you a study book. You can go to Winston-Salem and get it in 3 months, or every Wednesday in Norfolk, Virginia. And I said, typical me, I said, I'm heading to Norfolk next week. I got it. I studied. I passed elements 1, 2, and 9, showed Paul Allen my little card that says I'm a DJ. And he said, okay, we're auditioning to be the Sunday morning show at WGBG. And I said, wow, okay. Probably I was the only one who auditioned because I was so awful. But I got the job, and my job was to play the Billy Graham tape every week. And then for 15 minutes, I got to go on the air. And so I played the Billy Graham tape. I remember the first week, and we had Tom Miller, the program director. Can you imagine getting up at 5 o'clock on a Sunday morning to come over and help me learn? People don't do that anymore. Anyway, so I played the Billy Graham tape, and then afterwards I got to be on the air. Now, I'm speaking into a microphone right now, as you can see, but the clock is over on the wall, so I have to tilt my eyeballs up to see what time it is. Well, I didn't know then, so my parents were listening, and so I said, hey, it's Rick Dees. No, I'm sorry, my name is Rig, R-I-G. So for the first moment on the air, my real name is Rigdon Dees. It's an old name from I don't know where. but RIG. So this is Rick Dees, and it's 11:15. It's 11. See, I would lean away from the mic to tell the time. So I got back, and my dad said, you were great, but every time you gave the time, it sounded like you went out of the room. And so I got better at that. Here's what happened, though. We'd go back over and practice with the tapes. They didn't have a lot of money, so there was one tape to tape the Hour of Decision with Billy Graham when it came in. So the night before, on a Saturday, Paul and I and these other guys are there, and we're messing around, doing characters and everything, saying awful words and playing them back, like that was funny. And so anyway, I had no cue speaker to see if in other words, I couldn't hear it. All I could see on what they call the VU meter is whether it starts or not. So I saw where it started. I thought it was Billy Graham. This is the third week I'm on the air, okay? And it's like, and now, Dr. Billy Frank Graham and the Hour of Decision. Son of a bitch! Pieces of hammer, you asshole. And so I cut it off real fast, and then my voice got really high. It's not Billy Graham, is it? And I looked at this. There's a red phone, and if it rings, it's over. And the phone rang.
Oh, no.
And it was Ralph Lambeth, the general manager, and he said, "Is this Rick?" "Yes, sir." "You know what happened just then?" "Yes, sir." "You're lucky. I'm in a good mood. Never let that happen again. Do you hear me?" "Yes, sir." And from then on, it was like, "I'm Billy Graham. I've been raked over the coals. People have told me time and time again. Ezekiel 23 says, don't say son of a bitch. Never say that. I've been told that. And now, rake me over the coals. They're those choir girls. Look at those robes out there." That's the alternate world Billy Graham. "I'm here with Chachi, and people have told me time and time again from my home in Montreat, North Carolina, that there's Ezekiel 23. He's over there now, sitting in the desert."
Tell me about your first gig in you worked at the College Station.
Yeah, well, here's what happened. I was there, then I worked in Winston-Salem. That's where the program director, Glenn Powers, greatest guy ever, said, "You're not Rick Dees, you're Rick." "Oh, come on." "No. If you say Rick, that's better." So I became Rick. Then I worked there. Then the biggest station in North Carolina was WKIX. And my dear friend, best friend in the world, college roommate, Ken Lowe, was on that station, but he used the name Steve Roddy. And I remember it was so amazing when we first met at the University of North Carolina. We built a little radio station. We were building one, and the resident manager there said, "Go meet Ken Lowe. He likes radio like you." And I said, "Really?" So I knocked on his door. He opens it up. He said, "Yeah." I said, "Are you Ken Lowe?" "Yeah." "I'm Rick Dees." "Yeah, they told me about you, Rick. You like radio too?" "Yeah, I do." I said, I'm on the weekend at WCOG. He said, "Well, I'm on the weekend at WTOB in Winston-Salem. Listen to me." And I go, "Okay." So I drive over to Winston-Salem, and all of a sudden, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, "Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Roddy." And this guy comes on and says, "Coming up next, the Carpenters. Not only close to you, but even closer than this." And I go, "Holy cow, this guy's amazing. Where is he from? Chicago or New York or Los Angeles or Hollywood?" I go back, "Ken." "Yeah?" "I'm sorry, I didn't hear you on the radio this weekend. You must have been sick or something. But the most amazing guy I ever heard, oh my gosh, his name is Steve Roddy, and please tell him he's the greatest radio personality ever." And he leaned through the door and he said, "Rick, I'm Steve Roddy. Set it here at 85 and rip the knob off." Holy cow. How do you do that with your voice? How do you do that? That was Steve, right? Ken Lowe, best friends. He went on, are you ready? He stayed in radio for a while, then got in management, and then in the mid-90s, he created, not managed, created Home and Garden Television, HGTV.
Nice. And we're going to get into that because you were in on that too, correct?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, yeah. If you'd like me to tell you the story, it's a good one.
I absolutely do. I have it coming up in a little bit later. Do you want to do it now? Or
now it's great.
All right.
He came to me. Well, first of all, I remember now flash forward. So I go from Raleigh. I'm almost fired there. I go to Birmingham. I'm almost fired there. I somehow end up in Memphis. I was fired there. And then I was fired for playing Disco Duck on the, I didn't play it. I just talked about it. And they said, it's a conflict of interest. You're fired.
Let's unpack that for 2 seconds, though. How did Disco Duck come to be?
Well, first of all, I'm in Memphis, and I'd always written little songs and this and that. I wrote a couple that did nothing on a label called Free Tone Records, formerly, and then Stax Records, a very famous, Sam and Dave and Isaac Hayes and all those people. So I'm on Stax and Free Tone. And so I submitted 2 songs. They didn't do anything. And Estelle Axton, who owned the label, said, we'll do one more, but you're going to have to pay for it. I said, oh, wow. So there was a #1 song called Disco Lady by a guy named Johnny Taylor. And I'd been working out at the French Riviera Health Spa in Memphis, and I'd listened to it on the speakers, and I said, wow, that's #1, Disco Lady. Well, I have a guy who calls in and does a duck voice, and I can quack, but this guy sounds great. Maybe with the alliteration like Disco Lady, maybe I can write something called Disco Duck. And here's the setup. I go to a party, a disco, everybody's treating me right. All of a sudden I begin to change. I'm flapping my arms. I'm acting strange. And now I'm thinking that duck voice, and all of a sudden I began to change. Look at me, I'm the Disco Duck. And then the duck voice comes in. I went in. I got the best musicians in the world, spent $800, Chachi. And the next thing you know, we recorded it. I had a song that I used as kind of a sample. Just play, it was a 4/4 stomp beat, like, and then Willie Hall, the drummer, said, no, I got it. And he did this great little pickup rather than going, he went, I said, it's a broken bass line. And next thing you know, everybody's into it because it's like $800. Who cares? And then the record company had a string date with the Nashville Strings. I didn't have the money for that, but I went in at the end of another person's session. I said, if I give you guys $300, will you just do this chart? And the composer, the orchestra director said, who are you? Are you nuts? I said, I got this. Just give it one pass. He said, you're an idiot, but go ahead, do it. And they did one pass with 24 strings. And then I said, could you double it? And they went, what are you, nuts? And he said, one time and get out of here. So we've got 48 strings on Disco Duck, the Memphis horns. Next thing you know, I'm listening, and I thought, wow. So I sent the tape to Robert Stigwood through a guy named Al Corey, a genius music guy and promoter with RSO Records. They called me back and they said, we'd like to buy this song. I played it for my kids and they went nuts. And we'd like to pay you $3,500 for the master and a penny a single we sell. Now, I'm 25 years old, so I said, that sounds good to me. And so they make 99 cents, I make a penny. And so they had all of this extra money to promote it. And Chachi, Robert Stigwood said, the next thing you do, Al, make it #1. So it went to number 8, and then I'm on the air, and the guys at the radio station in the morning at WMPS said, don't play it. So I didn't play it, but when it got to be number 3, and I'm booked to do the midnight special, first time ever in Hollywood, I mentioned it on the air. I said, nobody's playing this song, but it's called Disco Duck. I have it. It's number 3 in America. If you got a chance, and then all the TV stations showed up because it's like local guy has big hit. So it's the day I'm supposed to leave from Memphis, fly to L.A., to Hollywood to do the midnight special with Wolfman Jack, American Bandstand with Dick Clark. And so the general manager, John, called me in and said, "We told you, you're fired." I said, "Wait a minute, we're number 1 in the morning." And I didn't play it. I just mentioned it. He said, "I'm sorry, we think it's a conflict of interest." And so I'm fired, get on American Airlines, come to Hollywood for the first time. I did American Bandstand, and backstage, this arm goes around my shoulder, and this guy says, "Hey, Rick, we heard you were fired. You should be in Hollywood, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that happens." Turned over, it's Dick Clark.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That is unbelievable. And it goes on to sell 6 million copies.
6 million copies. Now, here's the other thing. They didn't pay for it, but Estelle Axton said, "No, well, look, here's what happens with artists. Any artist who may be listening, they'll come to you and say, well, we'll handle your publishing. We'll do all of that. We'll handle all of your publishing. We'll do all that." What that means is we own the publishing and we'll promote it, but they own it. So she did that with me, and I didn't know what that meant. They owned my publishing. That means if there's a Disco Duck movie, they get paid. I don't. If they want to have another artist like Johnny and the Pimps redo Disco Duck, I don't get paid for that. And it's mine. So years and years later, 25 years later, I finally had the money and the clout to call them back and say, "If you don't give me the publishing back, I'm filing a lawsuit in California, and I don't think you're going to win." They call back, no, here it is.
Oh, so you got it back.
I got it. Anything that happens from here on. This year, this is great. From my publishing, from Disco Duck, are you ready? I have made $178. That's why I'm doing the Everybody Loves Chachi podcast.
But you did get a People Choice Award, a BMI Award, and you were nominated with a Grammy.
Well, thank you.
I mean, that
feels great.
That's so impressive.
Oh, it feels so good. I have to pinch myself because then all of a sudden, Ivan Reitman calls me and says, "We have this movie with Bill Murray called Meatballs. Would you compose and sing the title song?" And I said, "Me?" Next thing I know, I wrote this song called Meatballs. I find myself on the same soundstage where they sang and recorded Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I said.
Yeah, it's hallowed ground.
There's 105 musicians from all over the world, mainly the Los Angeles Philharmonic. And there's the conductor up there, Elmer Bernstein. And he says, how do we do this, Rick? This is Elmer talking to me. And I said, I go back to Memphis in my mind. I said, well, it's a 4/4 stomp beat. That's all I remember to say. He said, you mean like, Yeah, I said, and the bass player hits on the 1 and the 3 because I know that KC and the Sunshine Band, everything, if you listen to their music, it goes bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum. That's on the 1 and the 3, and each one of those hits on the 1 and 3 jerks your body one way or the other, and that's what makes you dance.
You are a force of creativity. Was your mom or your dad creative? Where does it come from?
Yeah, thank you. I think my mom was encouraging. She took me to everything, all my little merit badge interviews. My dad, very creative. He had wonderful hands and could work with his hands. But I think it's a God-given thing where here's what happened. And I mentioned my parents arguing so much, and that's so sad for kids. It's like when I say argue, I'm really toning it down. Mm. And maybe it was the war or whatever with my dad, and it was mainly him. I remember that same 6-year-old kid who almost bitten by the rattlesnake. This is the type of stuff that sticks in your mind. So this is part Chachi psychiatrist now. So another time when I was 5 years old, I was a fat little kid. And my dad comes out in the garage, and he was in a bad mood. And he said, "Can't you get it right, you fat little pig?" Mm. And for some reason, that fat little pig still lives in me. That's why there's this big cake next to us right now. And the lobster over there and a double cheeseburger. By the way, Capitol Grill has a great cheeseburger and French fries. Where was that?
I mean, that's really heavy though as a kid.
So it made me want to be the peacemaker and make everybody happy. So then I started doing as a fat kid, I would get up on the high diving board at the swimming pool, and actually I was 4 years old in a turquoise tank suit, and I got up and did what I call the Rick Dees hula dive. As I hit the water and came up, I heard that wonderful, incredible sound of 50 people laughing. And I went, wow, I like that. So that's when I got into listening to records. My main influence in comedy was Jonathan Winters. And then I listened to Bill Cosby doing his album, and he was clean and making people laugh, and then Jonathan Winters became a good friend. And then I would watch over and over Johnny Carson and the fact that he was a great listener. And if you listen to Johnny, he would be rough on the Republicans and the Democrats and the independents and mainly Hollywood people. And my advice today is, and I mentioned this to several people, I won't say any names, but when this certain name on television goes into a room, every person knows who he is. Half the room hates him. When I go in a room, the entire room hates me. The entire room hates me, and only half hates him. You thought I was going to be serious, right? Anyway,
not true.
I still love my parents. They're gone, but that's where the creativity comes from. It's like, what am I going to do to cheer people up?
Let's reset the table. We are here in Los Angeles. You're doing Disco Duck. Dick Clark taps you on the shoulder and takes you basically.
So I'm fired, and the other radio station in town, their competition was WHBQ. They couldn't believe it. I had a 45-day non-compete in my contract, and they said, well, we'll just promote the heck out of you for 45 days, and then you're going to go on the morning here. And so we did. The good news is I did go on WHBQ. They're owned by RKO, which owned 93 KHJ in Los Angeles. And I'm not trying to brag, but in short order, we annihilated that other radio station to the point where they played, I think, bluegrass, and then now it's a religious station or whatever. But, and
all because you dared to spin your own record.
Yeah, oh yeah. And by the way, on WHBQ, they played Disco Duck every 12 minutes. I even got sick of it. But it got me on the radar screen in Los Angeles. Paul Drew, who is a very famous programmer, sent Chuck Martin, a wonderful programmer for KHJ, out to listen to me secretly in Memphis. And he did, and next thing you know, here we are.
You come out here to LA. KHJ is an institution. I think at one point KHJ had like a 25 share.
Oh, it was unbelievable. Yeah. And I went on, but I didn't realize it was the end of music on AM radio. And so this is great. I'm on for a year. I thought I was doing okay, but I hadn't been really the Rick Dees me yet, because at KHJ, very formulated format. You have to 7 seconds to be funny or whatever. And so we did great. But then Lynn Anderson, who was a salesperson there, came in one day in October, and she said, hey, I got purple boots. What color did you get, Rick? And I didn't get any boots, which told me, oh no, the people who don't get boots aren't going to be on this new country station. And they changed to a country format. Now I'm fired. And next thing you know, I couldn't get a job. I thought, wait a minute, I'm Rick Dees in the morning. And so finally this guy calls, named Don Benson. He said, we have this disco station, and we saw your ratings on KHJ. Perhaps we could talk. We can't pay you what you made before. But I said, listen, Don, give your address, and don't say KIIS. It's 102.7 KISS FM. KISS FM, Rick Dees in the morning, and all the hits all the time. And he said, well, we were thinking of playing like MOR, middle of the road, like the Carpenters and Barbra Streisand. I said, don't be a friggin' idiot. Play the hits. Play Michael Jackson. Play Madonna. Play all the hits that are coming out now. That new group, The Police. Come on, unleash me. And he said, well, okay, I think we're going to hire you. We're not going to pay you very much, but don't get us in trouble. Don't lose our license. I said, oh, don't worry. You're not going to lose your license, but you will get in trouble. I'm going to go on, and I'm going to become the Rick Dees I was in Memphis. And next thing you know, we go on, and it's so great. The president of the radio division comes in and fires the general manager. And I go, uh-oh, is it happening to me again? Because they had a 1.9 rating, which is not very good.
Right.
I go on, and 3 weeks later, the ratings came out. It was a 1.7. Oh, and that's what I said, what you just did. So I said, oh, no. So they fired the general manager. Between songs, if you have to go to the men's room or whatever, you have to hurry. So I went into the men's room. I was washing my hands, and this guy standing there. I said, hi, how are you? He said, wait a minute. Are you Rick Dees? I said, yeah. He said, I thought you were. I could. Now, you're on the radio. I heard you coming in this morning, and you are fantastic. I said, wow. Tell the general manager, the new one, whoever he is, that if you ever see him. He said, well, I work on this floor. I'll tell him. I said, well, please do, because they may fire me. He said, oh, no, they can't fire you. You're the greatest I ever heard. I said, wow. Make sure you tell him that, too. I said, Rick Dees. He said, nice to meet you, Wally Clark. And the next day, attention, everybody, here's our new president and general manager of 102.7 KISS FM, Wally Clark.
And the two of you.
Oh, he winked at me. And next thing you know, it's on fire. I remember they hadn't sold out the Raiders game. They had 2,000 tickets left. And Wally comes in and says, say you're going to buy all the rest of the tickets. I said, Wally, that's so much money. He said, just say it. And I did. Hits the front page of the LA Times. Rick Dees buys all the tickets. Of course, that's great promotion. So at about that time, and of course, didn't have to pay anything because it caused a quick sellout. And so this is great. I had the president of the entire Gannett division come in and say, he was from Atlanta. He said, hey, Rick, never knock that dung off your boots. Meaning, don't forget who.
Stay grounded, right?
Yeah, stay grounded. And it's like, I knew that. And I said, oh, no, sir, I won't ever do that. And he said, you know what, we're just talking in the board meeting that if you ever get a 7 share, we'll get you a country club membership anywhere you want in Los Angeles. You'll never do that. The next book comes out. I had a 7.5 share. And I go to this guy and I said, Mr. Davis, I have a 7.5 share. Yeah, I know. And Roger Cleveland wants to sponsor me in the Lakeside Golf Club of Hollywood, where underneath all of that tinsel is more tinsel. He said, go ahead. And it was great.
Amazing.
I got a membership. That's when I took up golf big time. And it was great.
Walk me through a day in this part of your life. Just the insanity. It is firing on all cylinders. The station is just...
Oh, it was incredible. I tell people, I go into a restaurant and it was hard to pay. No, try out our new double cheeseburger, whatever. No, I'll be glad to pay. So that's when I said, if I'm not going to pay, I'm going to tip big. So that's where I got a reputation. Okay, if you answer the Dees quiz... Okay, Jamie, answer the Dees quiz. You've done a great job today. What is it? Okay, what day of the week is it? Saturday. Here's $100.
Yeah.
And they loved it.
You're still to this day known as a phenomenal, you're incredibly generous.
Thank you. It's just a way of giving back.
All over town. Are you, back to the dung on your boots, it's got to be tough to stay grounded. The success, and it's really. I lived adjacent to here, and you were your household name far and beyond. But to go through KHJ that had Charlie Tuna, Robert W. Morgan, the real Don Steele, all these massive talent went through there, but you eclipsed them. And no disrespect to them, but your star,
they're awesome.
They're awesome, but your star just, absolutely exploded. And were you pinching yourself at times?
I was pinching myself. I remember being, I got to audition to host, it was called Solid Gold over at Paramount Television. And so I was offered $150,000. Now, that's a lot of money. And Bernie Carniol was my agent. He said, you got $150,000 if you want it. And so I said, yeah. I got a call. There's a guy, Rick, yep. This is Sandy Gallen. Have you ever heard of me? I don't think so, Sandy, but nice to talk to you. He said, I manage Dolly Parton, Michael Jackson, the Pointer Sisters, Neil Diamond. I want to manage you. I said, well, that's great. He said, let me ask you this. If I get you $1 million to host Solid Gold, would you let me manage you for 15%? I said, well, that's nice of you to do, Sandy, but I've already been offered $150,000. I'm going to take it. He said, that wasn't my question. If I get you $1 million, will you let me manage you? And I said, yeah. Next thing I know, he calls me back. He says, Barry Diller's my best friend, and Michael Eisner says that's great. We did a favored nations deal because Andy Gibb made $975,000. We added $25,000. You got $1 million. Next thing I know, I'm on a set of Solid Gold, and everybody was watching. They're watching the dancers. They're not watching me. I remember going to Greensboro, North Carolina, and this guy was working in a gas station. And he recognized me. I'm getting self-serve gas. I go in to pay him. He's behind the counter. He says, you're Rick Dees. I said, well, thank you. Yes. He said, you're on that Solid Gold. I said, yeah. He said, please, can you tell me, is that Darcel, the dancer, as beautiful in person and as shapely, he said, as she really is? I said, Clarence, I'll be honest with you, his name was Clarence. I said, she is the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen, the nicest lady, and she is so in perfect shape, you wouldn't believe it. And he said, are you ready? Yeah. This is what he said. He said, oh, Rick, I would love to go with you to Hollywood right now. I'm 77 years old, and I'd like to walk up to Darcel. I'm 77 years old, so I would say, Darcel, I'm 77 years old. There's not much I could do to you right now, but I'd like to pat it once and wish it well. Is that the best line of, I'd like to pat it once and wish it well.
Did they give you training for television?
I was in radio, TV, and motion pictures at the University of North Carolina. So, yeah, in a way, then you have to work at it, and you have to look at the best people in the business and just copy them. At a certain point, you kind of develop your own style, your own timing, and watching sitcoms as a kid, that's all I did. I Love Lucy and all that stuff, I remember. And then I would write down the best lines. And so there's a lady named Madeline Pugh who wrote for I Love Lucy, Lucille Ball. I remember one scene, they're in the Brown Derby, a very famous restaurant. There's Fred and Ethel and Ricky and Lucy. And always at the Brown Derby, the best comedy comes out of reality. At the Brown Derby, they would go around years ago and have a big phone, a big red phone. And the captain waiter would say, telephone call for Rock Hudson, and then everybody looking, they'd take the phone over to Rock Hudson. So anyway, the guy comes in, there's Lucy and Ethel and Fred and Ricky, and he says, telephone call for Cary Grant, and Lucy and Ethel go, Cary Grant, oh my gosh, where's Cary Grant? And then Fred says, sit down, stop it, he's people just like you and me, and they cower down in the booth, and then about half a minute later, telephone call telephone call for Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner, telephone call. And Fred goes, Ava Gardner. Oh my gosh, Ava Gardner, Ava Gardner. And then Lucy says, hey, sit down, Fred. She's people just like you and me. And there's a quick pause, perfect timing. And Fred says, she may be people, but she's not like you and me. Isn't that great? Clean, laughable. So that's what you want.
Your storytelling and the way that you set up your humor is really awe-inspiring. It's beautiful to watch in all sincerity. You're a true just performer, incredible storyteller. Have you worked with many consultants throughout the years? How did the craft?
Like I say, you watch and you do. You know what this may sound really unusual to say. The best inspiration for storytelling is, believe it or not, the Bible. The Bible. Old Testament, New Testament, the Bible. There's so many great stories, and you take those stories. There's sex, there's confrontation, there's doubt, there's worry, there's everything else, and you can pull it out, and it applies to everything. So I'm not saying you have to read the Bible or whatever, but there's some great stories there. And then, like I said, sitcoms, listening to people. There's some really talented people out there today. Jon Stewart, for example, came into the show, and just off the cuff, wow. And then Robin Williams came in when Robin was on, and he was just off the cuff. Jonathan Winters, unbelievable. I mean, you could see it in his eye. He's getting ready to go into another character and talk about parachuting into Abu Dhabi or whatever. And it's just, my wife, Julie, did a special with Jonathan Winters. Now, Julie, there's another story altogether. I met her when I was doing a TV show, and she's the voice of Casper the Ghost.
Incredible talent herself.
She's the voice of about half of the Smurfs, so she can do all those voices. So Jonathan Winters said, I'd like to use Julie on some of my shows. So Jonathan Winters doing a special from Cooperstown called Jonathan Winters Salute to Baseball. Now, Julie and I had just gotten married, and they were taking a break. There's this old hotel, and there's Jonathan sitting on the front of the hotel, rocking back and forth. Julie and I walk by, and instantly Jonathan Winters goes into a character, and he's sitting there rocking back and forth, and he goes, I never smoked, never drank, and he starts scratching his crotch and goes, thousands of them, what are they? Thousands of them. Now that's funny.
You met Julie here in L.A.?
Yes, I did. There was a show called Wacko, which is kind of like a kids laugh-in. And so Peter Simone was the agent on the show, and I said, Peter, who's that blonde? She kind of looks like Marilyn Monroe. Don't go there. What do you mean? Rick, I know you're single. Don't go there. She's really, really old-fashioned. Don't go there. And so I went over and introduced myself, and we talked for a while. She went up and did some more impressions to kind of show off, I could tell. I went back to Memphis, came back and asked her out, and one thing led to another, and we've been married 123 years. She doesn't call me Rick, she calls me defendant.
You've got $1 million in your pocket. You've got the #1 morning show in Los Angeles.
There you go.
At that point, obviously, your trajectory is just explosive and still a lot more to come.
Well, what
was the first thing that you did when you literally get this massive, I don't want to call it a windfall because you really earned it, but.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing was I had a house in Memphis, and Julie moved there for a few months before we moved to Los Angeles. So I sold the house for $75,000. Wasn't big. Came out to California. And we got a real estate agent. He said, what's your price range? And I said, well, we sold the house for $75,000, maybe $85,000 for a house. He said, did you say $185,000? I said, no, $85,000. And next thing I know, I literally am looking at a trailer park in Northridge, California. And I go, this is a trailer park. He said, this is what 85,000 gets in Southern California. And next thing you know, we found another place in Tarzana. And so then the money finally started coming in, and I actually just squirreled it away. I just put it away and started saving it. And then what happens, and I say this regrettably, somebody comes in and says, don't squirrel it away. Let me have your money, and I will invest this for you in the stock market. And look, this is all I ever do, and you're going to make a ton. I said, really? Give me your money, Rick. Go ahead. Well, okay. I trust you now. Of course you do. I gave him the money, and let's say the money was $150,000 or $200,000. This is how stupid I was at the time. I remember about a year later, am I reading this correctly? I don't know. What does it say? I said, well, at the top it says $200,000, and then net, where it says net, that means after everything, it says $3,000.
Oh, my God.
That's what I said. I said, $3,000? She said, you mean to tell me we only have $3,000? And I said, I'm going to go to Jerry Edelstein, our attorney, who was Bette Midler's attorney, John Bon Jovi's attorney. And he looked at it and said, Rick, what you went to the University of North Carolina? I said, yeah. He said, did you take any money courses or balancing a book or looking at a balance sheet? I said, no. Okay, let me have this. Rick, you have $3,000 left out of the $200,000. I think there's been massive churning here. And I said, what is churning? Long story short, I got it all back because the guy churned the account. It pissed me off so much that later in life, several years ago, I went over to your area in Glendale after studying for a year. Now, understand, I didn't know this, but I studied and studied and studied. I went in. I'm wanted. The lady says, Mr. Dees, are you any relation to Rick Dees? I said, I am. She said, what are you doing here? I said, I'm here to take this test. She said, did you study? And I said, yeah. She said, well, this is a hard test. This is, okay. I went in, took the test, and at the end, on this blue screen, it says, stop, test complete. Yes. Would you like to know your score? Yes. And then I swear to you, on the screen, this blue screen, this sign comes up and says, are you sure? And I reluctantly hit yes. And it said, congratulations, Mr. Dees, you have passed the Series 65 Investment Advisor Law exam.
No kidding.
Yeah, I got it. Because I've had so many people, not so many, but several people try to steal, and I just got tired of it.
I had no idea that you had that education. I've always known you as an incredibly bright businessman. I did not know that you actually went.
If I could tell you some of the things that you would just be amazed. Yeah. They're depressing. The advice I give with the Series 65, I actually am, I'm actually, the law helps me, but from FINRA lets me give you advice. The advice I would give anybody making money, buy land. They're not going to make any more. If you can get land with a triple net lease on it, like a FedEx building or whatever, that means they pay if the roof breaks or whatever, and they just send you a check every month. Apartments, I don't know, with rent control and everything, not so good. You might do what I did. I wanted to find a nice place to do the radio show that's the westernmost part of the Eastern time zone. So I went out, I knocked on doors in, believe it or not, Kentucky, which is such a beautiful state. I didn't grow up there, but I knocked on the door of a farm. The lady said, my husband died. Maybe we could talk about it. And I purchased a 425-acre farm in Kentucky. And my son Kevin said, Dad, what are you, crazy? It looks like the Haunted Mansion from Disneyland. And it is. Okay, so 425 acres. And then I said, here's Taylor Swift a few times. bought the farm next door. Long story short, it is literally the best investment I've ever made. We have corn, wheat, soybeans, Angus cattle. I grow 1,000 acres of organic corn that makes a bourbon that they distill at Buffalo Trace, and it's called Pappy Van Winkle.
One of the most memorable experiences I've ever had with you is having I wouldn't even say it a shot, because you don't shoot Pappy Van Winkle because it's way too good, but having a Pappy Van Winkle tasting next to your locker at Lakeside.
And here's the way you do it. Caller 100 right now to Chachi Loves Everybody. Caller 100 gets a taste of Pappy Van Winkle, 23-year-old, $6,000 a bottle. Caller 100 right now, 855 Rick Dees, 855 Rick Dees.
And
call today.
And it's impossible.
I think I should, if I could find that person, I would definitely. It's a wonderful. It's kind of a beautiful caramel vanilla. It has a wonderful finish. Now, I supply their corn, and then they make the money.
And it's important to note you've got a beautiful golf course in Kentucky as well.
Well, we never talk about that, but it's a place we play called Danville Country Club.
Let's go back to the morning show. I think of the morning show with you, of course, Ellen, Paul Joseph.
Oh, yeah.
How did the team come together?
They're great people. They're all so talented. Paul was the producer, is still doing great. I call him Randy. That's his real name, Randy Paul Joseph. And Ellen Kay is such a wonderful listener and keeps you right on the subject. She has that beautiful voice. She's already in the Hall of Fame herself. But it just gelled, and she just knocked it out of the park. The first one was Liz Fulton, and she had a beautiful voice, too. And so we called her Liz Rogburns Fulton, which she said, "That's me." And she went along with everything. She was awesome. And Rachel Donahue was terrific. Everybody, if I'm leaving out any name, I want to make sure we include it. But Ellen, in particular, was such a nice run. And she's so talented and still does great. She's on in L.A.
She's doing great on Coast. The people that you've mentored, it really is a who's who. And to have someone like Ellen go on to have the success that she's had, it's got to be rewarding.
It is. And she has a great laugh, very creative. So, Ellen, number one.
A lot of successful businesses, let's say, has a creator and an operator. Walt Disney, Roy Disney, Tim Cook, and Steve Jobs. Right. You and Wally had that kind of relationship.
Yes, yeah. Wally could just make things happen. As far as sales and marketing, wow. He was awesome. And then after Wally, very creative. Roy Loughlin was very creative. And like I said, Paul Joseph and all of that creativity, because they could take something and spin on a moment really good.
The events you guys did, everything from Wango Tango, and
Isn't that great?
It's really impressive. Talk to me a little bit about the weekly top 40.
Oh yeah. Well, what happened was Wally was the general manager. He said, "You know what? There's a hole here. Maybe, you're catching on here. You love to do this. Could you write this countdown and perform it? And we think we can get you on to several stations." And I said, "Okay." He said, "Well, look, I'll put in this money and you put in 2/3 more or whatever. So I'll take 25%. You take the rest, this and that. And next thing you know, I'm writing the show. We did it. And thanks to Dick Clark and Nick Verbitsky and people at like United Stations, it just exploded. So now we're on, and we're just going like gangbusters. So the countdown is now become the longest continuously running countdown ever. And this is kind of a credit to our industry. So Casey Kasem had a different show. He would say, up 3, down 4, whatever.
Sure.
And that's fine. What I would do is a little more personality, if you want to call it that. Where I'd say, "Did you see that cone bra that Madonna's going to wear on Friday night?" I did. Let me tell you what it looks like up close coming up next. So that's the way we did it, and it just caught on. So, and what I say, the credit to Casey, both of his kids came in and interned for me.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, and they're the greatest. And Casey and I were friends. So there's competition, but there's healthy competition. I always feel there's room enough for everybody.
125 countries, over 70 million listeners all around the globe.
23 ships at sea. I have more military people coming up saying, wow, we were deployed on the USS Ronald Reagan, and every day you come on and give the announcements for the ship. And I said, isn't it wild? Thank you for having me do that. So we've been on Armed Forces Radio for years and years and years. And think about this, let's just take the USS Ronald Reagan, something the size of a football, Chachi, powers that huge aircraft carrier around Earth 8 times. Something the size of a football.
I did not realize the nucleare reactor.
Yeah, of course. I love reaction. Look, my ear is glowing. It's okay. One of my gonads fall off. It's okay. It's glowing on the floor. No more testosterone.
Anyway, that's Jonathan Winters.
Also starred in your own late night television show.
Oh, that was so much fun.
Into the Night.
It was so great. Now, here's not a problem, but can you imagine starring in a late night show opposite Johnny Carson's last 2 years? So,
Jeez.
And I saw Johnny during that time. He was so gracious. He said, "Hey, Rick, you're doing well." Meaning, "Hey, Rick, I'm kicking your ass." "Hey, Rick, how's that ass feel with one of Chachi's boots right there?" And so it was terrific. You know who was incredible? And I thought about this the other day. They should have promoted her a lot more. She should have been on the cover of the Inquirer every week. Lisa Canning. What we should have done, and we did, but she should have been like the co-host. That would have been really good. And, hindsight is 20/20, but if you go back and look at some of those shows, they've all been digitized now. And Reelin' in the Years is the name of a company. They do digitizing. They digitized it. And Chachi, it looks better than ever. You can see all these stars on, and it's all over the internet, but it was fun. Here's what happened. So I'm in the morning on 102.7 KISS FM. Then I get late nights on ABC. So I get up at 3:55 in the morning. I go in. We do the #1 morning show. I get off and literally sprint to my car and show up at ABC television at probably 11:30. I then go into rehearsal. We record, tape the show at 6 or whatever, 6 to 7. And then 7 to about 8:30, we go over what's happening for the next day, get in my car, drive home. And I did that for about a year and a half. And this is so sad. My son, our only son, great guy, #1 real estate agent in the world now, Kevin Dees, at age 8. Kevin Dees looks up at me and says, "Hey, Dad, how long are you going to do this?" Broke my heart.
I'm sure.
Because he never saw me. So what happened was I went in and figured out now I'm starting to run numbers for the first time, Chachi. And so I ran the numbers. I said, do I make more from radio or television? And am I sick of standards and practices sitting there every day saying, no, you can't say that. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. And am I tired of everybody beating me up who wishes they were doing a late night show? And I said, you know what? It's been almost 2.5 years. That's it. And I went back and just did radio and the countdown. Best decision I ever made. I don't look back other than to say I did it. I think really what I wanted to do was be on late nights opposite Johnny Carson. It was great.
Only a handful of people on the planet could say that they ever did that.
Think about that. And again, it's if you go back, I go back now and I watch and it's kind of fun to say that was really good. We wrote a good bit there. That was wow. So it's digitized and ready to go. But thank you.
When I first came to work with you in 2000. You had just signed, which, to my knowledge, it's got to be one of the top 5 radio deals in history. It was immense and so well deserved. And working with you was just such a remarkable experience. And I learned all sorts of things.
I have to give credit for that deal to my business manager's name is Edward White. And Ed White and I have been together for years and years. Right now, Ed White is having one of the biggest days of his life. He is in Rome meeting the Pope Leo the 14th. But back in time, he came to me and he said, Rick, a couple of things have happened. Why don't you do this? Become debt-free. I said, what do you mean? He said, own your house, own that farm, own your car. That's it. And I decided with that to become debt-free. He worked out a great deal, and Clear Channel loved it, and we loved it, and everybody made money, so, why not? To give anyone listening the deal that it was, and I shouldn't even be so open about it, but I will be. It's exactly the same deal that Shohei Ohtani has. I sucked you in. It is a fraction. You have to understand $17,000 a year is great for a radio show. You make $17,000 a year. That is great. So the fact that I made $18,000 a year, everybody loved it.
Talk to me a little bit about after 30 years at KISS.
Yeah. It was 1981. It was like close to 30 years.
And I mean, you are synonymous still to this day with KISS FM. What was that like to walk away and to?
Oh yeah. Well, it everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so I was sad. I wanted to kind of kick it for another little bit of time, and then I started thinking, no, this is great. I can concentrate on syndication. I've always wanted to create something, so I had this idea, and I said, I'm not doing this morning show. We did another one after that, but I have this time, so I went into the board of directors at Scripps, and they're such great people, and I said, I'd like to pitch this idea for a television network. And rather than kicking me out, they said, well, what do you have? And I said, well, we could launch this. And they said, well, how much would you like to own? I told them, and they laughed me out of the room. And they said, we're not going to do that. And they didn't do that. they had it. But so Scripps launched. We launched it knowing that they're probably going to change it. It was called Fine Living. We launched Fine Living, got up to critical mass. They did a great job, and then flipped it, and now it is called the Cooking Channel. So that's it. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Was this with your friend Ken Lowe?
Yes. Yeah. Ken Lowe, such a creative man, and he managed all of this. He created himself HGTV, but he had to walk away. He had no part of the deal. He just introduced me to the board of directors, so he had no part of it. But at the same time, he said, well, if you want to make a fool of yourself, go ahead.
It's important to know you've got a cookbook, published author. You are obviously a huge fan of cuisine. And has that been something ever since
ever since I was that fat kid I talked about? I've loved dessert. So Chachi, my whole thing has been going around the world and finding the 40 greatest desserts of all time. So rather than write a book where I was there when Michael Jackson's hair caught on fire, which I was, all of that, I thought, no, a cookbook can last forever. So it's Rick Dees' all-time top 40 greatest desserts. It's on Amazon, and every penny, not just a portion of the proceeds, every bit of the proceeds goes to the Salvation Army. And the reason is, if you didn't know this, 90 cents of every dollar you give to the Salvation Army goes right to the work of the Salvation Army. So 90 cents, every bit. Perfect time to get it now. You go on Amazon, Rick Dees, all-time top 40 greatest desserts. One of my favorites is called the Cola Cake. On page 106, it has a bottle of that Mexican Coca-Cola with the real sugar.
Yeah.
You have one slice of this cake and ice cream, and it has so much sugar and wonderful feeling that for no reason at all, you'll write a term paper. That's how much it jacks you up.
Fill me in on BYO channel.
Oh, yeah. So everything's heading towards streaming music. So what I decided to do was get involved with that. The overall company is called BYO, Build Your Own Channel, and got together with the greatest programmers and coders in the world. And you've heard of Spotify and Pandora. What I did is I built what you might call a spec house. And the spec house is called Rick Dees Hit Music. It's free in the App Store. The difference is a much more personal experience. Tons of pre-made channels, but you can go in and build your own channels. And then, as not a DJ, but in the digital world, you'd be a digi, D-I-J-I, host your own channels and play them, plays on every Bluetooth speaker, which is everything, your car and everything else. So streaming music is it. It's ready to go. It's called Rick Dees, D-E-E-S, Hit Music in the App Store. Thank you for asking.
Of course. It's phenomenal. Joe showed me the technology. It's incredible.
What Chachi
cool.
is basically saying with all of these ventures, I have scratched and clawed my way to the middle.
So you actually reconnected with Clear Channel, which is now iHeart.
Yeah.
And you recently launched the Rick Dees Weekly Top 40 and also the classic version on their iHeart media app.
Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah, then the iHeart app is great too, so download that one too. Oh, the critical mass has been phenomenal. Great reviews, so keep crossing your fingers.
The guest appearances you've done, from La Bamba to Roseanne, Married with Children, the Jetsons, Family Guy. I mean, it's really cool. I've seen the Family Guy and obviously La Bamba, which is one of my favorite movies.
By the way, that Family Guy is so great, isn't it?
So good.
I mean, it's like the different Dons. Have you ever seen it? If you get a chance, go to YouTube, Family Guy, Dons. And the writing was great, like Don Amatapia and all the rest. But anyway, I'm the new Don on K-Don, a radio station. And thank you, Family Guy.
Your awards and one other media at the beginning of The Streets Have No Name, the U2 song. You're
Yes.
also featured at the beginning of that,
Thank you.
Which is incredibly cool. Your awards, Billboard's radio personality for 10 consecutive years. I mean, that's unreal. Obviously, National Radio Hall of Fame inductee, National Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame inductee. You've a Marconi recipient. I mean, Marconi is the Academy Award of radio. And coming up next month, in just a couple weeks, you're going to become a giant of broadcasting and get into the Library of American Broadcasting Foundation.
New York City, here we come. So it's all about preparation, you know. I will surprise you. You're not supposed to give a long speech. It won't. But can you imagine I'm going to go up to, like, Leslie Vissert is one of the wonderful nominees and recipients, and to go up and say, you know, Leslie, it's such a joy to meet the first person to break the barrier in sports for women, and you must have mixed emotions every year on your birthday, don't you? And she'll go, wow. And I say, to be born on September 11th. And she'll go, wow, he did his research. And then David Muir said, David, I'm sorry I wasn't here for your birthday last week on November 8th. And he'll go, wow, everybody's favorite day, catch me on this, is their birthday. And this is when you say, well, when's my birthday? And it's, I don't care. No, I'm just joking.
I'm sorry, it's just dawning on me. You are so thoughtful with that. You, every year without fail, send me a birthday card.
Well, thank you.
That is so, and where did you get that from? Was that in How to Win Friends and Influence Others?
No, it actually wasn't. I just noticed that it's just so obvious. Everybody acts different on their birthday.
Yeah.
They're either pensive and they're thinking, gee, where was I last year on my birthday? This year on my birthday makes you remember your mom's birthday or whatever. So I just bought into it and said, you know what? I'm going to try to find out everybody's birthday. And it works.
That's really...
I'm going to go up to Gary Sandy, okay? Now, he's getting the award, too.
Yeah.
And, he was on WKRP in Cincinnati. And I'll say, Gary, it's a big birthday coming up here. I'm sure it's frustrating every year because being born on Christmas Day it's got to be frustrating. He'll say, "How did you know I was born on Christmas Day?" You just have to. In other words, it's they talk about luck being where opportunity and preparation meet. That's where luck is. That didn't take that much, right? Just to know a couple of birthdays and that, and then you got all the people who will be there. I mean, just a bunch of friends in one room. It's great.
It's going to be a phenomenal event, and thank you so much for doing it. In full transparency, I'm on the board, and we are so thrilled to have you. If you're interested in tickets, you can call Debbie. She's at 723-245-7799.
Could you give that number again, please?
I can. You've done this once or twice.
Her name is Debbie.
723-245-7799.
7799.
Gotham Hall, New York City on Friday, November 14th.
We're bringing people in. And Debbie, if you're listening and the board, I don't deserve it, but I can't wait.
Rick, you've been so generous with your time. I'm going to give you a quick bonus question. What do you want to be remembered for?
That's such a great question. What a nice guy. That's it. What a great dad. What a loyal friend. What an ass.
That was perfect.
Thank you.
That was so good.
Everybody loves Chachi.
Thanks for listening to Chachi Loves Everybody. If you like the show, we hope you'll leave us a 5-star rating and tell your friends. Make sure to follow on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. This has been a Benztown McVeigh podcast production. Hosted and researched by Dave Chachi Dennis. Engineered by Darren Silva and Megan Vasquez. Produced and edited by Jake Urbanik. Show coordinator Suzanne Aksu and Robbie Gessel.